And sorry for that slight delay. Good morning, everyone. So just to, I'd really like to use today just to try and finish off the sugya. The Gemara is working through the memory of Rabbi Loza, who said that Konin, Makolos, and Lustra and Meducha couldn't code in Ataras Kelim Shiur. And Lustra we saw already. Just to remind ourselves, number one, the Marshal pointed out in Lustra that Rashi seems to be saying that it becomes a Keli because it's Roy Loduch Boshum. And once it's a Keli, even though that's a Klish Melachta Le'issa, it then becomes equivalent to Klish Melachta Le'ata because it's being used as a doorknob. And the Rosh, but the Ritva rather said that we can say it's used for P'tzias Legozim, which would be it seems to say Klish Melachta Le'ata. We then saw we pointed out, we didn't go into this in detail, that the Machlokas, Rabbi Shiur and Rabbi Tarfon, could be explained in other ways. I mean, according to our Gemara, that says that the Mishnah is Nishnes Kodem Hataras Kelim, we need to understand what would be the pshat in the makel. What would be the explanation of Rabbi Shiur, who says that of Rabbi Tarfon, I'm sorry, who says it's not Muktza. Rabbi Shiur says it's Muktza and Shomta. Why would Rabbi Tarfon say it's not Muktza? Now there could be other explanations you come up with. You could, for example, learn, and there's reasons to think this is the pshat in the Mishnah, that Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Tarfon are arguing about whether it's a Keli at all or not. And the Chazanish mentions this Chazanish that we printed. Or you could learn that they're good for arguing whether this memra is, or they're good for talking about different eras in history, Kodem or Acha Hataras Kelim. And we saw Tosfos, who says that Tosfos printed on Kuchaf Gimel on the base, but really on our sugya, who says that the nidin is, according to Rabbi Tarfon, even though it's Kodem Hataras Kelim, these are like Kelim Hatadirim Matashvisham, they're like knives and forks and things like that. And that's the basis of the heta. So that's what we saw till now. Meducha, which is the next case in the Gemara. Meducha Hada Omran. The Gemara just says Meducha Hada Omran. So just to do a little bit of chazara, again, Meducha needs a little bit of explanation. The Gemara is at this stage learning. So if we go back to the earlier sugya of Meducha, the Gemara mentioned it earlier because it wanted to use it as this is the top of Kufkaf Gimel Amud Aleph. Meducha in Yesh Bashum, Metaltin Eloisa, Vim Lav in Metaltin Eloisa. So the Gemara says that Meducha Yesh Bashum you can be Metaltel, but Ein Bashum you can't be Metaltel. So the raya of our Gemara is Ein Bashum, why can you not be Metaltel in Meducha? It's a Keli. Answers the Gemara, yeah, but we're going like Nechemia, Kodem, we're going like Gezeiras Nechemia, Kodem Hataras Kelim. If that's the pshat, then what's the heta of Meducha Sheyesh Bashum? How does Meducha Sheyesh Bashum work? Now earlier on Kuf Chaf Gimel Amud Aleph, when we learned the Gemara, we saw Machlokas Rishonim, but we saw, for example, the Rashba and other Rishonim who said that the heta of Meducha Sheyesh Bashum, the metalton in it, so that you can be metalton in it, is because since it has the shum in it, it becomes a klish melachta leheta. In other words, Meducha is used for grinding shum, that's a klish melachta le'issa. However, once it has the shum in it, it's klish melachta leheta, and therefore it's mutter on Shabbos. Now, I don't understand. If we're going Kodem Hataras Kelim, like Nechemia, then how does it help that it has shum inside it? Surely it's a kli shemlachta leheta, but kli shemlachta leheta is still also Kodem Hataras Kelim. And I think the answer to the question is that this gets us again back to the confusion in Rashi about which stage in Hataras Kelim are we talking about. Rashi at the beginning of the sugya, at the bottom of Chufchaf Gimel on the base, said Kodem Hataras Kelim, Kodem Minyan Ha'achron Shehutru Kulam Masechet Kufan, before the Minyan Ha'achron. So in other words, all the Gemara means to say is that these memories are going before the complete abolition of Issa Kelim, before the complete Hata Kelim, but not all of them symmetrically so, because, for example, at the bottom of the Amud, Rashi says, Kodem Hetem Minyan Harishon, that was with Kolim Doiche Shabbos. But here we'd have to learn that we're going Kodem Minyan Ha'achron, and therefore we're at a stage in the Gemara where Klish Melachta Le'issa is already putar. That's what you would have to say in explanation of the Gemara. That Meducha, how did the Gemara understand that Meducha was mutter? Sorry, how does the Gemara understand that Meducha was mutter? The answer is also the Talmud is Klish Melachta Le'issa, because it's Kodem HaToras Kelim of Klish Melachta Le'issa. Mutter the Talmud when it has Shum is, like the Rashba explains, that it becomes a Klish Melachta Le'heta, and we already by this stage in the Gemara understand that Klish Melachta Le'heta is not Chlal Minyan Kelim. That's what you have to say in the Gemara. That the suggestion of the Gemara by Meducha is that it's at the stage where Klish Melachta Le'issa is still Asa, but Klish Melachta Le'heta is already Hutar. That's what you have to say in the Gemara. Okay, so that's that stage of the Gemara. Now we move on to the answers of the Gemara. So the Gemara says, Konim Tamamai, Mishumei Afushi B'hai Porson and Yasha. So the Gemara says that it doesn't, that the reason for Konim is because there's not enough of a Torah. It doesn't really make such a difference if you wait to Masechet Shabbat to move them, and therefore that's not called a Torah. So here we have the source sheets that I printed. We go back to Hamar Makomis. So basically, there's a several way machlokas Rishonim which ties up a little bit actually to something we discussed earlier about what dinim are left over nowadays. So the run, and this is the run earlier on Kaf Gimel Amud base that we saw before, who said who was discussing whether Halacha L'Maisa tiltul shelo klal is allowed. So we saw that the Gemara only said that by the time of the unraveling of Hataras Kelim, all that's mutter is mechamal etzel. So is mechamal etzel another way of saying tiltul b'chti? Halacha l'maisa krish melachta leheta is mutter to move for no reason whatsoever, or is the Gemara saying no mechamal etzel? If there's a need, then you can move it, even though it's not tzorich guf or tzorich mekomo. However, if there's zero need, you can't move it. You can't move kelim for zero need. So the run belongs to the school of thought that you cannot move kelim for zero need, and we saw the Mishnah Berurah paskin like that. So it turns out that you can't just move chairs for no reason whatsoever. There always has to be some sort of tzorich portion. There has to be some minimal tzorich equivalent to mechama etzel, and the run is mochiach this from here also, because he says that you see from this that klish melachta leheta, which is the konim according to Rashi, and it's mavur in the Gemara that since lo miashi, since it doesn't make such a difference, it's also the taltuloi. So you see, number one, that you can't move a klish melachta leheta for no torah whatsoever, and number two, that actually you need a non-trivial torah. You need a little bit more than a completely trivial torah, because the delay in the freshness of the bread and delaying to move them for a few hours till Motzei Shabbos isn't even that's not called enough of a Torah. In which case we have a whole new Shulchan Aruch we need to learn. Rabbi say not only do we have a Shulchan Aruch that Klishim Lachta Heta can't be moved for zero Torah, which even the Avnei Nezer acknowledged that anyone besides the Lomdim doesn't know. It turns out you even need to start gauging. Even a very small Torah isn't enough. You need slightly bigger than a small Torah to gauge, to be mati. Thus says the run, and as we saw, the Mishnah Berurah seems to pass in this way. The Chidushay ha-Rashba that I printed on the page learns differently the Sukkah, and the Rashba learns that our Gemara is going. It's totally on the Gezeiras. It says our Gemara is going like Rabba, which he says means Rabba bar Nechemia, and Rabba bar Nechemia holds that a Klish Matanata is also Mechamal Etel. But the Halacha we pasken that Klish Matanata is Mutter Mechamal Etel, and Mechamal Etel is Sorich Kati, and therefore none of these limitations apply. Thus says the Rashba. Now, the Avnei Nezer, which we saw earlier when we learned the Sukkah earlier, he says that limits on the Lomdim who everyone other than the Lomdim who don't know these halachas, and he says, look, it's machlokes Rishonim, it's machlokes Rishonim, it's Muktza. We don't find that anyone's noyig like this. It's not clear what the Rambam holds. And I since then posted on the WhatsApp group the Aruch HaShulchan, who says a similar sort of svara. So they all seem to be going with the Rashba, and the Rashba says no, you don't have a raya. Really, It could be that la halacha klish melachta leheta is mutar mechama l'tzel and hu adin tzorich kadif for no tzorich whatsoever. And our Gemara is going like Rabba, i.e. Rabba Banach who holds that it's only mutar l'tzorich that even a klish melachta leheta is only mutar mechama l'tzel. So Bekitza, it's a machlokas Run and Rashba. The Run is mechiach from our Gemara very convincingly that klish melachta leheta, even if klish melachta leheta is not mutar for no reason whatsoever, and not only not no reason whatsoever, but you even need a little bit of a reason. And the Rashba says not like that. Now, in terms of the terms of the view of the Adam.
Ask a question. For the Run, where did you see that there has to be some sorek? I think I maybe missed it. Can you just explain
really, it's
why?
the diuk of the Shahatzion. We're going back to the diuk of the Shahatzion because not only does the Run say you need no tzorich is not enough, but here when the Gemara says Iyuv Shemiyavsha and so on, it seems to be saying that there is some tzorich in that. You want the Kelim to be used. It's just not enough of a tzorich, and therefore that's not enough to move it. So you see that. I'm combining the Kitza, the Shahatzion's diuk with the Run.
The Shahatzion was in the previous source sheet.
Yes, in the previous source sheet. Yes. Who's medayik from our Gemara that zero tzorich is not enough.
Because the Kelim, it's some tzorich, although to be honest, you don't really need it, but you sort of need it a little bit, and therefore it still was osa, so you need it more than that. Okay.
Correct. Yes. So we end up in a very complicated universe where there's zero use, there's very very little use, and there's very little use, and it becomes enormously complicated. Yeah. Jumping ahead again, just to remind you, the Mishnah Brewer's diuk was from Makolos, Efshek Rabbi Loza. So there, I think someone was even asking me about that. I mean, that doesn't seem a tiny tzorech to have to stretch your hands out onto the kosei, the shoulder of your fellow kohen, and begin stripping the animal like that. Nonetheless, the Gemara said that since it's possible to do so, again, I'm no expert on this. Maybe it's not such a hassle to do that. I don't know, but since it's possible to do so, therefore that's not enough to allow the use of the klish melachta leheta. And the Mishnah Berurah on that said that you see from this that the heta of klish melachta leissa, the tzorich gufay, this is the Shahatzion that we mentioned in Shin Ches, in Sifkot and Yud Gimel. So he says you see from this that klish melachta leissa, the tzorich gufay, isn't when you could use an alternative kelim. It's only where you have no reasonable alternative. So if you have a dedicated coconut cracker or a hammer, don't use the hammer, the tzorich gufay. Use the dedicated coconut cracker and avoid using the hammer. Now we asked on the Shahatzion that that would also apply halacha l'maisa in klish melachta leheta. L'didon that klish melachta leheta is, or according to the Mishnah Berurah rather, who says klish melachta leheta is only allowed, not allowed to be chamer itself. Has to be some tzorech. So would we have the same diuk again? So the Shahatzion is mashma that even a klish melachta leheta would be also the telltale where you could avoid using it, unless again we say like the Rashba that our sugya is going like Rabba, in which case we avoid this whole issue. So this remains a little bit of confusion. There is, by the way, another way to learn the Rashba. The Avnei Neis is mechiach from this Rashba that the Rashba is cholek on the Run, and the Rashba holds that because the Rashba says our sugya only works like Rabba, and it's a klisha melachta. Rabba holds klisha melachta leheta is also mechama l'tel, which is mashma that la halacha a klisha melachta leheta would be mutter. Even b'tzorech k'di. That's what the Avnei Neis is mashma in the medayik in the Run. So again, just to summarize, the Run says that we see in our sugya that tzorech k'di, no tzorech whatsoever, is not allowed to be klish melachta leheta, because our sugya says that no, our sugya is matcha, we're going with the klish melachta leheta, and nonetheless, yushim behind pulsa no miafta, and therefore it's not miafish, and therefore it's not enough. So the Ran is medayik that you see that you need a Torah. The Rashba says, no, our Sukkah is going like Rabbah, who holds Klish Melachta Leheta is also Mechama Latel. The Avnei Nezer says in that why would the Rashba say this? It's because evidently he held that Tzorech Kadi is enough to allow a Klish Melachta Leheta. You could be Madche the Rashba, and you could say the Rashba holds that Tzorech Kadi is enough to allow that you do need a Tzorech Kadi, but his problem was that here there is a Tzorech Kadi because of the hours of leaving the bread on the table, in which and maybe that's called enough of a Tzorech. In which case you could have the Rashba agreeing with the Mishnah Brura that Tzorech Kadi is not enough, and nonetheless holding that you don't need a Tzorech Porsa, you need a bit more of a significant than a Tzorech Porsa in order to allow it. So we could have a little bit our cake and eat it. We could have that we're going like the Shahat Sion and the Mishnah Brura that you need a Tzorech Kadi for Krish Malach Hata, but nonetheless you don't have to start measuring what's called a Tzorech Kadi. You could have a sort of middle zone in this. Just to summarize, so we're not have totally confused. You have a Run who says that Tzorech Kadi is not enough for Krish Malach Hata, and a Rashba who says Tzorech Kadi is enough for Klish Melachta Leheta. That's the Machlokas Rishonim. In Halacha L'Maisa, you have a Mishnah Brura who's going like the Ran, and you have an Avnei Nezer who's going like his understanding of the Rashba as to whether Tzorech Kadi is enough or is not enough for a Klish Melachta Leheta. And now we have a separate Machlokas, if you like, as to what's called a Tzorech Kadi. Is that a measurable quantity of Tzorech, or even a trivial Tzorech? That remains. So it remains a little unclear. Everyone, is this clear to people or confusing? Okay, Paul, are you trying to say something, or are you muted?
Sorry, I did want to.
Your lips moving.
So halacha l'maaseh. So we don't go with the view that the people who know will act in that particular way, but the generality of people don't are on the basis of Kadi. They'll do anything. They'll move it as soon as there's a heta. They'll move it. That's in fact what we passed.
I think so. Look, you have a Mishnah Brura who's machmir. On the other hand, we have an Aruch HaShulchan and Avnei Nezer who's mekel. In an area where you see, as the Avnei Nezer points out, the Minhag Olam is not like that. The truth is, the Aruch HaShulchan also points out that he says, "Atu b'shuftani oskinon." I think I printed the Aruch HaShulchan. Let me just have a look on the.
Yeah, I've got it here. I've got it in front of me.
On the WhatsApp group because that's where I printed it. Yeah, he says the label Nacht and Hetzel inspired Muktza Gamer Chamalatel, etc. So he says if you have a tanug in the tiltul, that would be enough. He says we're not dealing with fools. Why would someone be metal to something if there's zero tone?
Yeah. So
he says either you're being metal to you're literally misasik, you're just playing with the thing, you're just fiddling with it. Or because it brings you some tanug. As soon as it's some tanug, that's not called tzorech kadi. The Shartzian would argue with that because the Shartzian would say even a tzorech kadi isn't enough to move it. You need some significant tzorech, and surely the yufshe me'afshe is enough of a tzorech. So how would the Shartzian answer the Aruch HaShulchan? Aruch HaShulchan says this is ridiculous. As soon as you want to move something, there's a reason you want to move it. As soon as there's a reason you want to move it, that's called the tzorech kadi. The Shartzian would answer that you see from our sukkah that even a minimal tzorech isn't enough. There has to be some sort of level of tzorech. So I don't know. So just to summarize, I guess the most machmir stance would be to say you need some tzorech, non-trivial tzorech. Then you would have a middle position that you need a trivial tzorech. And then you would have the most makel position that you don't need any tzorech whatsoever. It seems a sensible position, perhaps, would be to take that you need some trivial tzorech. And a trivial tzorech is everything, anytime you want to do it, even if, as the Aruch HaShulchan says, even if it brings you a tanug, that would be enough. And the chumrah of the Shartzian, he doesn't really spell out his chumrah with respect to Klish Melachta Leheta, he only spells out his chumrah with respect to Klish Melachta Issa, and therefore we can say with respect to Kli Shemach to the Heter, even a minimal tzorech is enough, and a minimal tzorech, as our Chashulchan says, is Tanav, is just because it relaxes you by fiddling with it.
Okay.
That would sound like a minimal position. I must tell you, having said all that, I did come across a Rambam who seems to be mashma more like the Ran than the Rashba. And a diuk in the Rambam that maybe is mashma a little bit the Hachmi, but it turns out a little bit of a steer in the Rambam, because the Rambam says that the Rambam, I printed it again on the source sheet. This is the Rambam in Hilchos Tamidim U'Musafim. The Rambam is Perik Hey Hilchos Tamidim U'Musafim Halacha Yud Aleph, and he says Lo sit al kolim v'lo nitzlos doiches Shabbos. Now, why would moving the kolim need to be doiches Shabbos? This is on top of the second page in the source sheet. What Doiches Shabbos is there by moving the kolim? We're living in a universe post Nechemia. Why would there be a problem in moving the kolim on Shabbos? What would the issa be? We're post Nechemia. The answer is like our Gemara, because our Gemara said that it's it's not enough of the tamamai mishumei afushi. The whole reason why you're allowed to move the kolim is because of the bread, and it's not enough of reason in the bread to delay moving it for a few hours till Motzi Shabbos. That's what our Gemara says. Now, is our Gemara in a halacha? Well, according to the Ram, yes. According to the Rashba, our Gemara is going in Rabba bar Nechemia, who holds that even a klishma alachta laheta is also michamal etzel. The Rambam is paskening our Gemara. Why is the Rambam paskening our Gemara? Our Gemara, according to the Rashba, is only like Rabba bar Nechemia. Elamai, the Rambam holds like the Ran, that our Gemara is halacha l'maisa, and you see that a tzorech kol tehu is not enough to move even a kli shemlachta laheta. So otherwise, what would be the problem of moving the kolim? So in brief, if you want to, I'll say this: we have a steer in the Rambam. The Rambam here in Hilchos Tamidim U'Musafim paskins you can't move the kolim because it's only a small tzorech. Mashma that there has to be some significant tzorech. And let me check we've got this the right way around. Let's look at the Rambam earlier in the Sugya, which way the Rambam held. The Rambam we were Medaik in the Rambam. Hilchos Shabbos Perek Kafei, the Rambam said in Halacha Aleph, Yesh Kli Shemach L'Heter, V'yu Kli Shemutz L'Asayis B'Shabbos, Dova Shenasa B'Bechol, something that's Kli Shemach, V'yesh Kli Shemach L'Issa, V'yu Kli Shemach L'Asayis B'Shabbos Dova Shenasa, and it says Kol Kli Shemach L'Heter, Bein Hoi Shel Eitz, Shel Keres, Shel Even, Shel Matechas, Mutzav Taltu B'Shabbos, Bein Mishvil Atzmo Shel Kli, which is called Mechaman L'Tel, Bein Sorech M'Komi, Bein Sorech Guchoi. Kol Kli Shemach L'Issa, so maybe this is the Rambam L'Shitosoi, who seems to hold that so the Rambam does hold. So the Rambam earlier seems to say that you need Bishvil Atzmi Shel Kli in other he's paskin Mechaman Etzel as opposed to Koldehu. Does anyone remember was this the Maskana that we came out in the Rambam in the Rambam earlier? Let's have a look at my notes. Is that how we learned the shit to the Rambam? The Rambam held that you need a Tzorech Mechaman Etzel.
I've written on my notes now. This was in, I think, your third source sheet, wasn't it?
Yes, that's what I was just looking at now.
I've written not for Kadei, no purpose.
Not for Kadei, no purpose. That's the Rambam's view.
Yeah.
So this would be the Shtosim, and this Rambam would fit this. That the Rambam is again paskening that you can't move the kolim because again it's for no purpose. Yeah. Okay. Is everyone clear on this? Does this make sense? Okay, just to summarize, thank you, Adam, for reminding me. We saw this in the Rambam just now. The Rambam says that in Hilchos Shabbos seems to mashma that you can only move it l'tzorech atzmi shel kli, which is another way of saying mechamal l'tel. And the Rambam here in Tamidim U'Musafim paskins you can't move the kolim, which also why can you not move the kolim? Kli shemach l'heter. Elamai, the Rambam held again that you need some sort of purpose, and this is the Rambam l'Shitosoi. Okay.
The Rambam says, about ancient Shvut B'Mikdash, and he uses that example of even if it's low tzorech avoda directly, and he says there's a heter in the Mikdash.
Which case, sorry?
And the Rambam in the one that you've got
in Tamidim U'Musafim with the kolim, yes.
Yeah, and he says he says, there's no, you can move the Kelim because there's no Shvut b'mikdash.
No, he says, Lo sid Kelim v'lo toiches Shabbos.
And I know he says that, but I'm looking at a different one in the melachot case about
Ein Shvut b'mikdash.
And isn't this whole thing a Shvut anyway? So I just wonder if is that another contradiction or?
Chalab also lives b'Shabbos, k'masei b'chol kaf masei b'Shabbos. No, sorry. Okay, so that's what we looked at in the previous year, and we saw that for some reason Muktza or Gezeiras Nechemia is different to Ein Shabbos.
Oh, so this is in the time.
Yes.
This is Gezeiras.
Well, no, we don't know. Either the leftover of Gezeiras Nechemia. Sorry, again, Paul. If Klishim Lachtan Hatzah is Osa Shaloda Sorech Klal, that's because of a trace leftover of Gezeiras Nechemia, and it seems that wouldn't be included in Ein Shabbos b'mikdash. Yeah, we saw the Rashi there, the Rashi in Rashi Masechet Sukkah, where Rashi says again Ein Shabbos b'mikdash the Gabi moving the.
But I'm just saying, what's Rambam's thinking in terms of it's a question of timing, is it, of when this occurred, because he's got a principle in the Maklot of Ein Shvut b'mikdash, and you say no later. When it comes to the Kelim, it is going to apply.
Okay,
so is it a question of just timing here? Is it a question?
Okay, so let's make this clear. We have a Gemara which says that you can't move the Maklot because of Muktza.
Yeah.
So for some reason or other, the principle of Ein Shabbos b'mikdash doesn't apply. Yeah. Tosfos in Sukkah asks the question. And Tosfos said, because this is to do with Bona. Rashi asked the question. He says
it's Bona. Yes, he
said it's Mikdash. I told the And on that, Tosfos asked, but that's not what the Gemara is mashma in our sugya. So either way, Lamaisa, for some reason or other, reason X, Ein Shabbos b'mikdash isn't negated to this. You see that in our sugya. The Ein Shabbos b'mikdash is not a reason to be makel with Muktza. For some reason or other, either like Rashi says, because it's got a connection with bonus, or not. Okay, so now that we've solved the problem of Ein Shabbos b'mikdash, and for some reason or other it's not Nogeya, now we have Muktza. Is there a Muktza problem or not? Well, our Gemara seems to say that because B'hai Pul Salom Yafish, that's not enough to be makel in Hilchos Muktza. The Rashba says this is only according to Rabbi Nachmani, Paskin like holds that Nishim Lachtan Hatzah is Mutter. Is also Mecham L'Tzel, but the Rambam paskins this, in which case the Rambam is clearly paskining that. That's okay. I just want to use the last few minutes available just to quickly go through the Chazon Ish, and the Chazon Ish I print on source sheets very briefly. He makes two really important points. He's going on reading both the Havamina and the Maskana of the Gemara, because and again, there's machlokas. The view of Rabbi, he's going on Nagash Yesh Barosh Gustra. We're going back to that, and the view of Rabbi Yeshua is that Shomtom in Pesach Zeva Toda B'Chaveru, and Rabbi Tafin says no, it's Mutter L'Taltel. There's two ways to learn that machlokas. Either it's a machlokas in Hilchos Nechemia, or it's a machlokas in Hilchos Hotzah b'Shabbos. In the Havamina of the Gemara thought it's machlokas in Hilchos Nechemia, whether Gezeiras Nechemia applies to this bar, this locking bar. The Maskana of the Gemara is it's machlokas in Hilchos Hotzah. In both cases, the Chazon Ish asks the same question. If there's Hilchos Nechemia, why is Shomta Mutter? If it's Muktza because of Gezeiras, or also because of Gezeiras Nechemia, why would Shomta be Mutter? And if it's also because of Hotzah, why would Shomta be Mutter? Are you allowed to slide objects from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos? The answer is no, you're not. So why would Shomta be Mutter in Gezeiras Nechemia, and why would Shomta be Mutter in Hilchos Hotzah? And to both, and the Chazon Ish answers his first question by saying that you see that in Gezeiras Nechemia, Shomta is Mutter, and therefore the Muktza, the Issa Tiltal of Gezeiras Nechemia is never as strong as the Issa Tiltal of Milchama, of genuine Muktza. And in Hilchos Hotzah, he says, even though there's a machlokas, if the Ovi Hadeles, the thickness of the doorway is Klifnim or not, nonetheless, again, he says, it wouldn't be as severe as real as real hotzah. He says, he says, "Lo hutza tiltum muktza de alma greira, and a hachal kodem atas kelim hutza greira. V'chem chotza she'ena mereves, avakal de alma also hotzah mebaisa chotza de greira. Nonetheless, kill hacha toicha pesach kill tefei within the thickness of the doorway. It's more lenient after Rabbi Shua, even according to Rabbi Shua. So that's just in the maths of the sugya. You should know that Shomta is not a heter with general Kelim, general Muktza, but only a heter with Gezeiras Nechemia, and Shomta is not a heter in general Hotzah, only with this case of Toicha Hadeles, Toicha Pesach, which therefore would come out Halacha L'Maisa for the Loimdim, who are machmir on Klishmach to the heter. They would still be allowed to move it b'shmita. You wouldn't be allowed to lift it up, but you would be allowed to slide to Klishmach to leheter. That's what would come out.
I'm glad to see the Chazon Ish says with Sarich Iyun at the end.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so we'll stop here, Rabbi Isai. I wish everyone a good break and see you, Mr. Louise.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Break.
Thank you very much. Thank you.